Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today we're going to be talking about parallel compression. And pretty much what parallel compression is a super compressed version of an original vocal that's mixed back into the lead vocal. So let's say you have your lead vocal and it's mixed fully, and you have this pretty much duplicate of the same exact thing, but it's a super compressed version using a very high ratio, and you compress it a ton to the point where it's pretty much squashed, and then what you do is you mix it back into the original vocal. And what that's going to do is add fullness to the vocal. It's going to sit better in the mix. But what's really cool about it is, for myself, a lot of times I'm just doing a guitar track and a vocal. So if I'm doing like a cover or something like that, I like to add like 2 parallel tracks because it adds a lot of fullness where there's not really a lot going on. Also, by the way, if you hear this being called New York compression, it's the same exact thing. I don't know the history behind it, if it came out of New York, if people, just do that in New York. I don't know, but that's what it's called also. I definitely recommend throwing on some headphones for this. We're going to jump right into Logic, but if you don't have headphones, you'll probably still be able to hear the difference because it does add a lot of fullness to the vocal, but you should probably throw on some headphones. And this can be done to anything. It doesn't just have to be vocals. A lot of people do it with kick drums. A lot of people do it with snares. A lot of people do it with, whole tracks sometimes. So you can really do it on anything. All right, so we're in Logic right now, and I think the first thing I'm going to do is just let you listen to this first. This is a song I wrote, and I just did a live take, so it's literally just an acoustic guitar and my vocal. These two are the parallel tracks, which I have muted for now, so let's just listen to what it sounds like alone. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. It's not worth you second guessing or even asking why. Okay, so it sounds pretty good. I'm actually going to turn off this delay and this reverb right here so you can hear it better for what's actually going to be happening once we add in the 2 parallel tracks. So let's just put those in now, and I'll show you how to do it and what exactly they're doing. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. It's not worth you second guessing or even asking why. Now I'm thinking to myself, the reverb probably threw you guys off, so listen without it. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. And with it. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. Now I'm going to solo out the 2 parallel tracks, and you're going to hear that they're just super compressed versions of the original. So you can see if I open up the compressor, this is absolutely being squashed. This is showing the attenuation over here on the left, this red, and the ratio is at 50. And the attack and release, I mean, you can do a short attack with a longer release to hold it more, but that you can kind of just do that to taste. I don't really care about that too much, but you can do that and mess with that. But what this is doing is squashing the signal, and then what I'm doing over here is pretty much just dragging this up until I feel like it's nicely blending in with the original. So let's take away the guitar, although you might hear some bleed from this on the guitar, and just hear the vocals with these. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. Now take them out. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. And it is a dramatic difference, especially if you mix music. You're going to understand that this is a dramatic difference, and it might even be the thing that you're missing when mixing your own projects. Why does my vocal sound thin? Why doesn't it sound full? Parallel compression is probably the answer to that question. And I'm using the C1 compressor from Waves. I really like this because it has some visual things happening where you can see the attenuation and the compression happening on the left. Then you can adjust the threshold here, and I like how this, as you change the ratio to go up, as it's like a regular 3-to-1 ratio, as you might have on a lead vocal, you can see the slope isn't as dramatic as having a high ratio like 50-to-1, because this is like what people would call a brick wall, where it's coming up and it's being squashed right here. So that's really what's happening when you're compressing it this hard. It's basically limiting. And then you can just hear the body of it. Then what you can do is pretty much feed it into the original vocal. I know that your life is changing, don't let it pass you by. It's not worth you second guessing or even asking why. You just don't want to go too crazy with it. If you drag this threshold up too much, then it's going to sound too much like the original, and then it's going to clash with the original, and you don't want that to happen because it falls apart and sounds terrible. You can also use 2 different compressors if you want, so you could switch this over to a different compressor, either stock or another Waves one. Sometimes I like to use the R compressor too, and that's a really good compressor. Again, kind of shows you visually what's going on, and you can go to a 50-to-1 ratio just like that. Just the attack, release. This one is very intuitive as well. And what that does is pretty much give it different characters with different compressors, and then you could even EQ it if you want. A lot of people do that. If you were to maybe boost some of the highs over here, then that way when it feeds back into the original, it actually gives the vocal a little bit of top end too. So you can kind of just play around with it. You can do whatever you want with it, but this is essentially how you would use parallel compression. You just add another track. So let's say you have the original track here. You would just add another track. I just use the same bus personally as this one, and then I add a compressor to the actual channel strip. And people are against that because if you read about it, people talk about, you know, making sure there's no effects on it, but I don't think that that's necessarily true, or it really matters as much as people might say it does. I like the fact that everything's already rolled off and it has a character based on the chain that I'm already using. Or you could set up a whole separate chain and then just bus it a few different times. And that way, if you have different vocals, like let's say you had one part that was the chorus like this, and then you had another part that was the verse, you can use a bus, and that way you can still use that parallel track. The bus will be the parallel track essentially, and you would route it to that instead of having to redo it every single time. So that's also very helpful. But anyways, I hope you guys got something out of this video. If you did, please subscribe to the channel. I really appreciate you guys subscribing to the channel and liking the video because it helps the channel out a ton. And yeah, until next time, guys, I will see you later.